favorite quotes. I really, really love this. Culture drives expectations and beliefs. Expectations and beliefs drive behavior. Behavior drive habits. Habits create the future, and it all starts with culture. Love this quote, love this quote, love this quote. Culture drives expectations and beliefs. Expectations and beliefs drives behavior. Behavior drives habits. Habits create the future, and it all starts with culture. So, on this being the quote of the week, there's a really good book called Win the Locker Room First. This is by this coach. He used to coach the Atlanta Falcons. And, it's like the opening of the book, and it just talks about the culture that you have in your program drives everything behind that. And I really thought about this because of the different cultures that we've had in the gym. And, I feel like this quote, even though it's true all the time, that it's represented in our end of season events, right? Summit, Pinnacle, Regional Summit, whatever. If we talk about, earlier this season, I talked about Senior Red and how they just hadn't been working hard. I was like, hey, be on the lookout because this team's going to turn it around. They started turning it around, and they're going to be on a tear for the rest of this season, right? And they started working hard, but then they fell back into that same culture. And I had let our culture go unchecked on Senior Red for too long. And we were talented, and all these things, but we just had bad attitudes on the team, and just flat out lazy kids on the team. And I let our culture go unchecked. And when that happens, it leads to not being the very best that we can be. And ultimately, we don't get into finals, right? Because of that culture that we had and no one wanting to put in, I won't say no one, generalization, but because of, there's another really good quote. Oh my gosh, where's it at? That is the quote of the week. I gotta find it. I've changed the quote of the week. I have it somewhere.
This has never happened before, people.
Never, ever.
If you can see Coach Jason, he's scrambling right now.
No, I had to find my iPad because I knew when I saw this a few weeks ago, I wanted this to be the quote of the week.
And you totally forgot about it.
And I forgot about it. It made this one, but it's along the same lines. Here we go. Matt Lyle said, on every team, there's a core group that sets the tone for everyone else. If that tone is positive, you have won half the battle. If it is negative, you are beaten before you ever walk on the field. Actually, I guess that was by Chuck Noll, but Matt Lyle tweeted it. On every team, there's a core group that sets the tone for everyone else. If that tone is positive, you have half the battle won. If it is negative, you are beaten before you walk on the field. Chuck Noll.
I really like that one.
Yeah, and that is it. There are kids on every team who set the tone for the whole team, which obviously, and that sets the culture, right? And our key players on Senior Red set a negative tone, and it drowned the team the entire season. And most talented team in the gym, as far as, obviously they're our highest level, but as far as their ability to be great at their level, they were sometimes you have a higher level team, but they don't really have the ability to be good at their level. They were our best team at their ability to be great at their level, right? Pound for pound. But because our core athletes set a negative tone, I am not surprised that we didn't make finals, right? And it just is what it is. And on the flip side, we have Senior Black, who honestly, on paper, wasn't really that talented. We compare them to 2020, the year before, won NCAA. Well, let's start with 2019. 2019 Senior Black was very, very, very good. I was like, wow, these guys are really good. And if someone would have told me that first day of practice, hey, Jason, these guys are going to win the summit, I'd be like, yeah, duh, but how much? Like, these guys are phenomenal. The next year, most of those athletes went on to be on Senior 4. Like, a major majority of those kids went on to be on Senior 4. And so we weren't as talented in 2020. We were still pretty good, but we weren't as talented as 2019. And now 2021, we're not nearly as talented as that 2020 team. But the culture on that team is that they work hard and they put in the work. And the other part of the culture is, we talk about the other quote, culture drives expectations and beliefs. So they go, hey, we're on Senior Black, and the expectation is that we're a good, great, hardworking team. Expectations and beliefs drive behavior, right? So they behave like champions. Their behavior drives their habits. They create championship habits. And then all of a sudden, this team that's really honestly wasn't that good on paper went, and they're summit champions. Because we're kind of combining these two quotes, because the core athletes who led the team were positive and did things the right way, and so the rest of the team, fell in line like that, right? Versus our other team, who's really, really talented, right? The same kids that won NCAA the year before, the same kids who won the summit the year before, but for whatever reason, thought they didn't have to work as hard. And when your best athletes or your core athletes aren't setting the tone for the rest of the team, aren't being great examples for the rest of the team, it sets the tone not to have a good season. That team did not reach their potential the way they should have, right? And what's funny, if I sandwich in Junior Blue, team that got second place. Junior Blue started off strong. We first two competitions, we win our first two competitions. I think they go and lose maybe their next two competitions. And now they're like, oh my gosh, we suck. We're awful. And they stop believing in themselves. And once they stop believing in themselves, that's when I saw fights starting to happen at practice, right? And kids are blaming each other. I don't want to say fist fights, right? But not slapping another kid. But they're blaming each other and they're frustrated. And when something goes wrong, it's like the end of the world. And I saw that happen. And I saw them going from really believing that they were a good team to believing that they weren't a good team just because of a couple, because of core kids didn't believe they were good anymore. That infected the rest of our practices. We weren't as good as we could have been. Now, I remember making a conscious effort I remember writing in my journal, Junior Blue has lost their belief in themselves. We've got to get them to believe in themselves again. So I made a conscious effort to get these kids to believe in themselves again. So after that, it's still a battle because you're still battling, they're teenage girls. So we're still battling if they believe in themselves. But we go to Summit, and they're in first place after day one. They hit their routine. They're in first place after day one. And now all of a sudden, they believe again. Oh my gosh, we're in first place. Oh my gosh, right? And they end up losing the Summit by 0.2. The team came from wild card.
Wow.
The team that won wild card, South Bay Divas. Shout out to South Bay Divas and Charisma. Y'all doing a great job out there. So someone tag Charisma in this. Let her know. And then Charisma, you share this with all of your families because we need them to hear this as well. Well, not this specifically, just the podcast. I'm just trying to plug the podcast, Charisma. Don't hate me. So, but they did great. They had a really good routine in wildcard, and they were beating us by 0.5 of a point after, their wildcard score compared to our prelim score. So. Okay. Anyway, our kids now believe in themselves. Look good on day 2, hit on day 2. We end up losing to them by 0.2. And I remember telling the kids, well, here's what I will say. If those kids would have believed that they were going to be within 0.2 of the Summit Championship, they would have worked harder throughout the rest of the whole season. If they would have I wouldn't have had to get on them about, arguing with each other or wasting time just talking or getting on your phone in the middle of practice or whatever we wasted so much time at practice due to them not believing in themselves. But had they believed the entire time the way they believed in the beginning of the season, then we would have been able to, make up that 0.2 somewhere, right? It's only 0.2. We could have been able to make that up. So, it's super important for us. I wish I would have recognized that after their first loss, how much that first loss affected their self-image, and how much, me, if I lose a competition, I still think I'm the best coach in the world. I just go, we just lost. It just is what it is. We move on. But apparently, our kids, I didn't recognize as a coach that our kids didn't have that same self-confidence in themselves that, you're going to lose at times, so it doesn't mean that you are a loser. And when we lost and then lost again, I feel like it shifted their perspective and that they were losers, and then I didn't catch that early enough as a coach. And if I would have caught it earlier, we could have made up that 0.2 or whatever. But, it is what it is. You live, you learn, you grow. And I hope that these kids, every time we've won a Summit Championship or NCA, it's come off the heels of us coming really, really close to winning before. It honestly has. So, yeah, that's that was the quote of the week. So, 2 of them.
I liked both of those. Those were both really good.